Hello there, everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar, How to Answer the Most Difficult Questions That Patients Ask. I am really excited about this webinar, and apparently a bunch of other people are too, because we have record attendance tonight. And I think it's pretty obvious to know why, to see why, because so many times in our practices, patients ask us questions and then maybe we give an answer, and then maybe a few minutes later, the patient leaves and we think, oh, I wish I had a better answer to that. I could have answered that better. Or maybe even worse, the patient asks several people in the practice and they get a different answer from everyone, or they get an answer that doesn't drive them towards treatment, or an answer that drives them towards making an appointment. And that's just a regular occurrence in the day-to-day life of a dental practice. Patients ask difficult questions, and we think maybe we can come up with a slightly better answer, or maybe a tremendously better answer. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, and I'm really excited to have everybody here. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm Dr. Richard Madow. I'm co-founder of the Madow Center for Dental Practice Success, along with my brother, Dr. David Madow. Yes, we are two brothers, and we are both dentists. And the craziest thing is we have another brother, Dr. Marshall Madow, who is a dentist as well. He's got a great story. Maybe we'll talk about that one day. He's a mobile dentist. He actually has this big dental truck and goes around to nursing homes and assisted living facilities. So that's what Dr. Marshall Madow does. And Dr. David Madow and I help practices all over North America, all over the world, become better at what they do. Of course, we think about increasing revenue when we're talking about making our practices better, but we also want to enjoy our lives more. We spend so much time in our dental practices, it's not worth it if you're miserable at work all day just to improve your revenue. So anytime we talk about anything, any teaching that we do to any of our colleagues, dentists, and team members, we always remember that, yes, revenue is great. We all want to maybe earn more money or have a more productive practice, but it's also super important to have fun while you're doing so. And that's, you gotta love what you do. We certainly love what we do here at the Madow Center, helping dentists and team members all over the world. It's super cool. So thanks so much for letting me into your home, your office, your car, your gym, wherever you happen to be watching, your kitchen. Maybe you're cooking dinner. Here on the East Coast, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. It's a little bit after 8 o'clock, but it could be, a different time wherever you are. So wherever you are, whatever time it is, again, welcome. I know some of you don't know me all that well, and some of you, we've been together for 20 years plus. But real quickly, I'll just say, again, my name is Dr. Richard Madow. I'm a dentist in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm co-founder of the Madow Center. And I think one of the things that differentiates us in our quest to help dentists and dental practices is that I'm an actual dentist. I know there are a lot of consultants and coaches and trainers out there, whatever you want to call them. But most of them aren't real dentists. And I'm one of you. It's this crazy fraternity we belong to. And unless you've done it, you have no idea what it's like. So just like you, I've been kicked, I've been bitten, I've been puked on. I've argued with insurance companies. I've had obstinate patients who don't want to get their treatment done. I know what it's like to be prepping the distal of tooth number 2 in a patient who can't open, and they're bleeding and they're salivating and they're twitching. And I haven't been there, done that. So I'm one of you. I know what that's like. So again, I just wanted to frame it that way because, again, I know there's a lot of great instruction out there, a lot of great webinars, but it's always nice for dentists and dental team members to hear from somebody who actually is one of them. So let's get down to it. Tonight, we're going to talk about those crazy, difficult questions. Maybe we'll call them annoying questions or stupid questions, whatever we want to call them, questions that patients ask. So those of you who have been to our webinars before have seen this, but I'll just repeat it. If you want to make a comment or ask a question, there's something on the Zoom webinar platform called Q&A, but don't use that. I know it would make sense to put a question in the Q&A, but please use the area that says chat. And if you don't see chat on your screen, you might see 3 little dots, like an ellipsis, 3 little dots, an ellipsis. Click there and a little chat thing will come down. But when you go to chat, you're going to have the choice of addressing panelists, just panelists, or panelists and attendees. And I ask you that you direct your comments to panelists, and let me get out of the way so you can see that. Direct your comments to panelists and attendees, or else everybody there won't see it. So a bunch of you have chimed in already. Thank you so much. If you want to test your chat function out, see if it works, you can maybe check in and tell us where you're from, like Camilla has done from New Jersey, and Dr. Patel didn't say where you're from. And we've got Nova Scotia, wow, California, Pittsburgh. Wow, you're going too fast. That's great. Connecticut, Michigan, Miami, Pittsburgh again, Connecticut, Minnesota, LA, Denver. Wow, this is so cool. Buffalo, Chicago, somewhere in New Jersey. Wow, it's coming in fast and furious. I'm going to read all the, oh, Maryland, one of my fellow Marylanders is there. Looks like most of you are from either the US or Canada, so that is great. I saw Spokane, Washington. I guess you are rooting for Gonzaga if you're from Spokane, Washington. So my friend from Spokane, I just want to let you know that I will win my basketball pool and win thousands of dollars if Gonzaga loses, because I have Baylor going all the way and I'm in first place right now. So, hey, I'm still hoping for you though. It's a pretty cool story. Okay, lots of Wyoming. Wow, the beautiful state of Wyoming. What a beautiful, beautiful place. SoCal. Thanks so much, everybody, for checking in. That's really neat. It's great to see people from all over North America and maybe even all over the world be here with us tonight. Also, as you probably know, we don't charge for these webinars, and it's our pleasure, but it does take a lot of time and a decent amount of expense to put on a free webinar because nothing's free. And I just cannot thank enough CareCredit, who has helped to sponsor this webinar. We've been recommending CareCredit for decades. It is the way, as you know, to get patients to be able to afford their treatment. I mean, where else in the world can you get 12 months or 18 months interest-free? Where can you get anything that way? But you can get your health made better thanks to CareCredit if you take advantage of them. So I'm going to talk about something really special that CareCredit has for you tonight. So hang on, you don't want to miss that. It's going to be a little bit later in the program, but just suffice it to say, CareCredit does so much more than just offer financing for your patients. And you're going to find out a little bit more about that this evening. So thank you so much to CareCredit. I also want to thank two of our incredible Team Matto members, Ann Ulick and Sylvia Carlin. As you know, of course, they're not on the webinar with you tonight on the screen, but they work really hard year round. It seems like 24/7 to make sure that these productions go smoothly and that we're able to reach as many people as possible. And they're just two of the greatest people. It's really, really required, I think, to actually truly like the people that you work with, whether it's in the dental office or in our coaching company. And I really, really enjoy working with and being friends with Ann and Sylvia. So thanks so much for all the hard work that you do. Wow, that's a lot of thank yous. One more time, if you're going to make a comment, please direct it to panelists and attendees. That way, everybody, a bunch of people just came on and did panelists only, and I do appreciate that. But it's even better if you direct your comments to panelists and attendees. Okay. I think we did another CE Zoom webinar about 2 weeks ago, and I talked about practices being calibrated. So I know some of you are back here for your second time with us. Maybe some of you are on your 10th webinar with us. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think it's really important to frame our subject of answering difficult questions from patients by starting with saying that if you're going to do this, if you're going to take the time to watch this webinar and learn, and maybe even come up with your own answers to difficult questions, because you don't have to like mine. It's just a starting point. That's fine. We'll still be friends. But if you're going to do this, your practice 100% needs to be calibrated, or else this exercise is not nearly as powerful as it should be. Even if you shut off the webinar after I explain what calibration means, you will have learned something really, really, now don't do that, please, but you will learn something really, really important for your practice. So what does it mean when your practice is calibrated? It means that if a patient asks a question to the doctor, and then to the assistant, and then to a hygienist, and then to a front desk team member, they're going to get the same answer every single time, not wrote word for word, spit out like a robot, but they're going to get the same answer. I've observed kind of a fly on the wall in hundreds, it seems like thousands maybe, of practices across North America. And this is something that I've noticed in so many practices. Sometimes patients will ask, the assistant something and they don't like the answer, so then they'll go ask somebody else. That is not good. If a patient asks a question to any team member or doctor in your practice, they should get basically the same answer. So how do you calibrate your practice? Well, here's what you do. First of all, get every team member involved. Say, we're having a meeting. It's going to be next Wednesday. And I want everybody to come into the meeting with 2 frequently asked patient questions. Now, of course, the front desk team will have different questions than the hygienist and and that's great. That's good. So we're all going to come in with our frequently asked questions. And we'll see some of these questions tonight in the Dirty Dozen. I guarantee you, many of these will be the frequently asked questions in your practice. So now we go into the team meeting. We've all got our questions on index cards. We're going to pick 2 or 3 of these questions. And we're going to read the questions. And we're going to call Grubhub and get some pizza brought in, because all dental team meetings are better when there's pizza involved. Let's face it. So we got the pizza delivery guy. Pizza guy showed up. And now we're going to look at 2 or 3 of these questions. And we're going to go kind of brainstorming all around. There are no wrong answers. We're all going to talk about what is the best answer to this question. And we'll talk about it and we'll discuss and we'll have ideas and we'll brainstorm and we'll critique in a very friendly way. And then eventually we're all going to say, okay, we pieced together something that Mary said and something that Gloria said and something that Selvin said, and we're going to come up with the best answer to this question. Now, what is the best answer? Well, the best answer, a few criteria. The best answer is in plain, simple English. It doesn't have words like periodontal or crown margin. It doesn't have those kinds of words. It's words that an 8th grader would understand. And the answer to the question satisfies the patient. It answers their question in a really good way so they think, wow, I'm so glad I asked. That's a great question. And maybe most importantly, it directs them or drives them towards what we want them to do, towards making an appointment, towards saying, yes, I want to get that treatment done, towards understanding their finances and saying, yes, now I know I can afford this treatment. Whatever it is, these great answers direct the patient towards what we think is the best thing for them. And that's one of the great things about dentistry too. The best thing for the patient, which is getting them in good dental health, is the best thing for the practice also. So you can't say that about every business. So, if we've got a robust practice with high revenue and we're being totally ethical, chances are we've got really healthy patients and really healthy revenue. So that's a great thing about dentistry. So now we've got our best answer to the question. Then what do? We practice, practice, practice. Again, it doesn't mean we memorize and we become robots. It means that we're all going to give basically, in our words, in our style, the same answer to any question that a patient asks. So we've done 2 or 3 at the first meeting. Then a couple of weeks go by, you do 2 or 3 more, then a few more, then a few more. And eventually your practice is calibrated. Now, clinically calibrated, that's a different story. We'll probably get into that in a different webinar. But for tonight, we're going to talk about calibrated when it comes to patients asking questions. Okay, so please do that, or else tonight's webinar will not be nearly as useful and powerful and meaningful as it should be. So let's all dedicate ourselves to calibrating our practices. Okay. And one more time, a reminder, please use the chat function to ask questions and address your comments to panelists. I'm going to see if I can point to this. This is really cool. To panelists, got cut off, and attendees. Panelists and attendees. All right, let's get down to it and start doing the dirty dozen most difficult questions that patients ask. Question number 1. Oh, boys, this is a frustrating one. Why didn't my last dentist tell me I needed this? We work with some practices where they've maybe bought the patient list or bought the practice of a retiring dentist. And when that happens, wow, this question is rampant. But it happens all the time in every practice. And, we all have maybe different clinical standards, different ways we do things. And invariably, somebody will come to you and you'll talk to the patient about a crown or periotherapy or whatever it is. And they will say, why didn't my last dentist tell me about this? I just saw my last dentist 6 months ago and he said everything was fine. And now you're telling me I need 22 crowns. Why didn't my last dentist tell me I needed this? Okay, this is a tough one. So here's what I'm going to say about this first, and it's very, very important. And that is, first of all, never say anything bad about the previous dentist. Resist the temptation to say anything bad about the previous dentist, because look, that previous dentist could have been blind in one eye and couldn't see out of the other. They could have been the worst dentist on the face of the earth, horrible at diagnosis, worse at treatment. It doesn't matter. There's a good chance that your patient loved and respected their old dentist. So don't say anything about the old dentist that's negative. And let's face it, you weren't there when that exam was done, when that treatment was done, whatever it was. So here's how we talk about it now. You're telling the patient they need treatment. They're saying, why did my last dentist tell me about this? Don't say anything bad about the previous dentist. Just say something like, I don't know what the circumstances were when you saw your previous dentist, but I can definitely tell you that our examination today shows the need for a crown, and you need to get it taken care of as soon as possible. So notice, it's brief, easy to understand. You're not trashing the last dentist. You're kind of saying, look, I don't know why your last dentist didn't tell you you needed this, because I wasn't there when that examination was done. I don't know what the circumstances were when you saw your previous dentist, but I can definitely tell you that our examination today shows the need for a crown. And now this is a time where intraoral photos are really valuable. You've got that big, ugly cracked tooth with a half-assed amalgam hanging out in pieces. Show the patient this big, ugly tooth on the huge screen, and that's kind of doing all the work for you. And you're not throwing the old dentist under the bus. So again, the basic premise is you don't know what was going on during that examination, but let's talk about what I definitively see here today. Now, when we're talking about periotherapy, resist the temptation to say, oh, your last dentist didn't even own a perio probe, even though it's probably true. You can talk to them about, kind of the way I said, I don't know what the circumstances were when you saw your previous dentist, but I can definitely tell you that our examination today shows inflammation and infection in your gums and the need for periodontal therapy. Now, with perio, I love throwing in this little snippet, something like, well, the latest research has shown a very important link between the health of your gums and your overall health. And did you know that more adults lose their teeth due to gum disease than anything else? So we try to do the most thorough job possible when examining your gums. After all, you want to be healthy and have your teeth for the rest of your life. Now, this isn't really throwing the old dentist who didn't own a perio probe under the bus, but you are saying that in this office, we pay special attention to the health of your gums because this is how you're going to keep your teeth for the rest of your life. And gum disease has been linked to heart disease and diabetes and hypertension, whatever route you want to go there. Really, really important to say this stuff, but don't throw the previous dentist under the bus. Okay, that's question number one. Why didn't my last dentist tell me this? Let's move on. I'm just looking at the comments here, which are cracking me up. And I know that some of these are only to the panelists, so you guys can't see them, but keep the comments coming. We love them. Okay, let's do question number two. Why didn't this tooth hurt until you did the filling? The tooth was fine, and then you did the filling, and it's killing me, blah, blah, blah. Oh, whoo, that one drives us crazy. So, and this is going to be a common theme, maybe in even half of these questions. And that theme is the best strategy is to preempt this question and make sure this question is never asked. That's the best way to answer a bad question that you don't like. Make sure that that question is never asked. So how do we avoid this question? How do we preempt this question? Well, the best way to do that is to manage the patient's expectations. Let them know before you do the procedure, before you make them numb, that after any procedure, it's very normal to have some discomfort. And I'll tell you something that I love doing is if the patient's not allergic and can tolerate it and all that, of course, anytime we talk about medications, we're going to assume that you did a thorough health history. You know, it's okay to give this patient medication. I did this in my office. I kept a mega bottle of ibuprofens. It was like a barrel full of ibuprofens. I think I must have gotten into Costco and you had to buy like 50 of them. I don't know where I got the thing, but I kept a barrel of ibuprofen. And many times I would have the patient take 200 or 400 milligrams of ibuprofen while they were still numb. And again, this is great for pain control. This is not really a clinical lecture. I don't do much when it comes to clinical lecturing. But it's all part of managing this question, preempting the questions. That's why I thought it would be good to talk to you about this tonight. But again, manage the patient's expectations. So I love to tell them before any procedure, I don't care if it's the smallest buccal pit, before you do anything, let them know before they leave the office that it's very normal to have a little discomfort when the numbness wears off. As a matter of fact, if you can tolerate this, let's give you 400 milligrams of ibuprofen. But even with that, it's very normal to have a little discomfort when the numbness wears off. That way, they're not going to say, why didn't this tooth hurt until you did the filling? Because you already told them it's going to bother them a little bit. And then if it doesn't bother them at all, you're the hero. Now, if somebody after the numbness wears off asks you this question, or if they ask you this question ahead of time, like, why is it going to hurt when it didn't hurt before you did the filling? Let's give it a really nice explanation. Something like, and I love analogies, as you'll see. We could do something like, anytime you treat any part of the human body, whether it's a tooth, your arm, your nose, whatever, you stir up the nerve tissue and create a reaction which can be uncomfortable. Now, here's the analogy that I love. Imagine if you had a mole on your arm and a dermatologist removed it. It will be very sensitive afterwards. Same thing here. So again, everybody knows, I don't know why people don't complain to physicians like they complain to us. Everybody knows if a dermatologist slices a mole off your arm, it's gonna hurt for a few days. But when we do things, they don't give us the benefit of the doubt. So use this analogy. Anytime you treat any part of the human body, a tooth, an arm, your nose, you stir up the nerve tissue and create a reaction which can be uncomfortable. Imagine if you had a mole on your arm and a dermatologist removed it. It will be very sensitive afterwards. Well, it's the same thing here. Most importantly, this is a perfectly normal response to the treatment you had. Please stay in touch and let us know if things don't start to feel better soon. That's another thing. I love to reassure patients this is a perfectly normal response. It always makes us feel better if we know that everybody else is experiencing the same thing. It's not just us. It's not just our tooth. It's not a bad dentist. The filling's not too big. It's a perfectly normal response. But again, my favorite strategy here is to preempt it by letting them know ahead of time that it's going to be uncomfortable, because anytime you do any procedure on a part of the human body, it stirs up the nerve tissue, and that's just the way it goes. So, okay, that was number 2 of the Dirty Dozen. Let's keep rocking. Number 3. Oh, I love this one. When a patient pays and they've got, pretty expensive treatment, and they say, "Hey doc, did I pay for your vacation? Did I pay for that Mercedes I see sitting out there? Oh, I know your kid goes to that expensive private school. I bet I paid what was the tuition bill due or something?" You know, well, first of all, don't park your fancy car with a personalized license plate that says Floss 32 right in front of the office, or you're asking for trouble. Drive your beater to the office if you have one, or park around back or whatever it is. So don't ask for trouble, But I used to actually go and this is not a question that comes up all the time. I kind of put it in there for fun, but several people over the years have asked me how to handle this question. So I thought it was appropriate to put it in here. The first few times this happened to me, I kind of got defensive. I said, well, I'm explaining that the dentists are high earners, and I went to a lot of schooling, and nobody wants to hear that BS. I'll tell you what I said. If somebody said, "Hey doc, did I pay for that vacation?" Especially like if I was gone for 2 weeks and I came back with a tan and, with my hair braided, wearing shorts, they know I'm still on vacation, wearing sandals. So they would say, "Hey doc, did I pay for that vacation?" I would just say, "Well, you paid for part of it. Thanks so much. I had a great time." Just make a little joke like that and move on. I don't want to spend too much time on this question because it's a little bit tongue in cheek, but seriously, that's the way to handle this if you ever get it. "Hey doc, did I pay for that Mercedes?" "Well, you paid for a little bit of it, and I got to tell you, it drives great. Thanks so much." And just laugh, and everybody, they'll have a good time because they're asking the question kind of sarcastically anyway. Let's move on. Oh yeah, that's my summer house. No, actually, that's not my house, but it's so funny. I remember way back when I took a practice management course from a very, very famous dentist, and he had a slide like this. And he pulled the slide up and he went to the next slide really quickly. And the next slide was a picture of his house with all his exotic sports cars parked in the circular driveway. And then he said, "Oh, those pictures weren't supposed to be in there." And he just went through them really fast. He said, "Yeah, that's my house, my cars, but those pictures weren't supposed to be in there." I thought, yeah, BS, you're just showing off. And then I talked to a friend a couple months later who took his course in a different city, and he said he did the exact same thing in my city. So there's just no need to brag. If you are making a great living as a dentist, which I hope you are, or as a team member, and you've got, you're not in debt, you're able to pay your bills and save and fund your retirement, and you've got money left over, and you can afford a house like this, go for it. Just don't go into debt doing it. I'm going to just take a quick swim here, if you don't mind. Anyway, that was kind of fun. Okay. Can't you just fill it? You put a picture like this up on the monitor, and the patient says, "Can't you just fill it?" And maybe their previous dentist would have given them an MODBL XYZ PDQ amalgam. Who knows? But here's something really important to understand philosophically when you're answering a question like this. When we're treatment planning our patients and we're recommending treatment, it's our responsibility and sometimes a good strategy to let them know that one choice is doing nothing. I mean, let's face it, unless somebody's bleeding or swollen or in intense pain, dentistry is considered optional. It's something that we kind of have to admit to ourselves, but it is. No one's going to die if they have a tooth that looks like that. So, I mean, fixing it is great. It's good for their health. It's good to keep them out of pain and, all those good things. But one option is not to treat it. And you could say that to a patient. You could say, look, one option is not to treat it. But if they say, "Can't you just fill it?" After you go through all that stuff, you can say something like, "I'd love to be able to do that for you, but if we did, it would cause more harm than good." Because once we remove the decay and remove that old filling and smooth out the fractured area, the tooth will be extremely weak. It just won't be able to hold a filling. And if we tried, chances are you'd be back in a short period of time and you might need a root canal, or worse, the tooth could fracture and it would actually have to come out. So I think, again, this is an important philosophy to remember. And that is, when we're presenting treatment to a patient, whether it's one tooth like this that needs a core and a crown, or an entire treatment plan, which we'll talk about that in a different webinar, but I'm not a big believer in the humongous, overwhelming treatment plan presentation. So if you want to hear about that, send me an email, rich@madow.com, and I'll be sure to talk about that in a future webinar. It's rich@madow.com. But remember, when you're presenting treatment, of course, you're going to talk about the treatment you recommend, but also let the patient know that one option is to do nothing, and let them know the ramifications of doing nothing, because usually the ramifications of doing nothing it's not a good thing. It means they could get pain in the middle of the night. It means they could wind up losing the tooth. All those things are possible. And you're not being a salesman. You're not exaggerating here. You are telling them the darn truth. If you do nothing, you could be in big trouble. So again, a patient says, can't you just fill it? Say, I'd love to be able to do that for you, but if we did it, it would cause more harm than good. When we remove the decay and smooth out the fractured area, the tooth will be extremely weak and it just won't be able to hold a filling. And if we tried, you'd be back in a short period of time, possibly needing a root canal, or even worse, if that tooth fractures, you could lose it. There'd be a big hole in there. You need an implant, very time consuming and expensive. Our best bet is to do the core and the crown on this tooth. Okay, can't I just, along the same lines, can't I just get a regular cleaning? Can I just get a patient that's periodontal disease? And they're asking, can't I just get a regular cleaning? Well, I think we talked about this in the last webinar, but one way to try to preempt that is to use the talk over technique during your examination. Talk over technique real quickly. Let's say you're doing a perio exam. What's a patient here during a perio exam? 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 4. Good one. 3, 2, 3. They don't know what the heck is going on. So before you do your perio exam, tell the patient, right now we're going to check the health of your gums and we're checking for inflammation and infection, two things that nobody wants. Inflammation. And one of the reasons we're so careful about doing this is that you might not know this, but more adults lose their teeth from gum disease than from anything else. So we really do a very thorough examination of your gums. Now we're going to use this little ruler to measure how tightly your gums are attached to your teeth. And if you hear a number like a 2 or a 3, that's usually a really good sign. If you start hearing a number like a 4 and a 5 and a 6, that's a sign of inflammation and infection. And then we'll probably be talking to you about some therapy to get your gums in better health. So again, you've preempted this. And now when you're doing the exam and they hear 4, 3, 5, 5, 5, 6, they're going to know, wow, the dentist or the hygienist already told me that's a bad sign. I've got some infection, and they're going to be talking to me about some treatment to make my gums healthy again. So again, you can preempt that whole thing. But then even after you do that, then they're going to say, well, can't I just get a regular cleaning? Say, Marge, a lot of my patients are named Marge. Say, Marge, a simple cleaning is what we do when the patient's gums are totally healthy. If you remember, when we examine your gums, you had those areas of infection and even bleeding. It's important that we do everything we can to eliminate that infection so that you can keep your teeth for the rest of your life. And a simple cleaning just won't do that. It will be like putting a Band-Aid on a large infection or tumor. It may mask the problem temporarily, but won't be doing you any good. Now, as we discussed before, leaving this untreated could lead you to losing your teeth. So it's really crucial to have this treatment taken care of. And once the goal of removing the infection in your gums takes place and it's all eliminated, we can get you back on a schedule of regular cleanings. Now, have you noticed that when I formulate an answer to a question, first of all, it's very simple to understand. I didn't mention terms like periodontal disease and inflammation and bone loss. I've heard a lot of dentists say, you know, you've got some bone loss. Well, a patient has no idea what that means. Again, those are simple words, but a patient has no idea what that means. So make sure that you're not using any kind of dental lingo when you talk to the patient, something they completely understand. And now the patient totally knows that if they get just a regular cleaning, they're risking their health, they're risking losing their teeth, and they'll keep an infection in their gums. So that usually does the trick for getting them to go on board with periodontal treatment. Okay, here's one. What would you do? When does a patient ask, what would you do? Now, again, you might not think this ever happens in your office, but I've been in so many offices as a fly on the wall, and I've seen this happen before. The doctor recommends some treatment, doctor leaves the room, the patient turns to the hygienist or the assistant and says, what would you do? And I've actually seen team members say something like, oh, that's a lot of money. Or I'd say, I don't know, maybe I would consider just filling it. Ooh, baby. So don't let that happen. What would you do? So team members, I know we have a bunch of team members on this webinar tonight, and I'll just take a second to say, team members on this webinar, congratulations. Most team members would not take an hour and 15 minutes of non-work time to do education like this if if they don't need the clinical credit, their license is enough for renewal, whatever. I am so happy when team members take time out of their busy schedules to learn more about helping their patients and growing their practices. So team members who are with us tonight, pat yourselves on the back. I'm having trouble doing that. whatever it is. Thank you so much, team members, for being here. We really, really appreciate you. So now you're a team member. Doctor recommends treatment and leaves the room. So never say anything in disagreement with the doctor. Even if you're not sure about that, never say anything bad about the doctor or in disagreement with the doctor. If this happens a lot, you and the doctor need to have a one-on-one personal conversation to find out what's going on there. I talked about getting your office calibrated before, where your office should be clinically calibrated as well, which means everybody in the practice and front desk team members too, business team members should know all of these. Why do we do a crown versus a restoration? Why do we do periotherapy versus a simple cleaning? When do we refer for endo? When do we keep it in-house? If everybody understands all the criteria here, then the office will be considered clinically calibrated. So team members, if you have to disagree with a doctor, don't say it to the patient. Pull them aside later and say, Doc, why did you recommend a crown in that case? To me, it looked like a filling would do, or just something like that. And do it, in a friendly way, in a way of learning and helping and educating yourself, not a confrontational way. So this is another one of those questions that can be preempted. I call it the built-in second opinion. So let's say that you're an assistant, you're a hygienist. I know technically, legally, you're not allowed to diagnose, but you've been around long enough, you pretty much know, you can guess what the doctor's going to recommend. So if you're a hygienist seeing a new patient, or maybe you're an assistant seeing an emergency and you're taking an x-ray and the tooth looks pretty bad, like that one in the picture we showed earlier, you can give a preemptive second opinion without a diagnosis, just saying something like, I'm pretty sure the doctor's going to recommend a course of treatment called a core and a crown for that fractured tooth. So now you're giving your opinion before the doctor even says it. So you are preempting the what would you do question. But if a patient does ask this, let's be really sincere and really kind and say something like, I've been working with Dr. Smith for 12 years now. She's a fantastic dentist. And when I saw your tooth, I knew this was going to be her recommendation. I would definitely get it done as soon as possible. You'll be very happy that you did. See where I'm going here? Pretty easy one. Okay, well, we've done half of the Dirty Dozen questions already. Time is flying by. This is so much fun. I hope you're having fun too. If you haven't commented in the chat box yet, please say hi, let us know where you're from, make it towards panelists and attendees. We've got a great comment thing going. Really, really nice comments. I appreciate it. Okay, we're gonna just take maybe, not really a break, but a slight detour here from the Dirty Dozen. But coming up, here's some of the Dirty Dozen questions we're going to be talking about. Why are your fees so high? Woo! So crazy. I think no matter what your fees are, patients think they're high. I think if your crown's $1,000 or if it's $2,000, patients are going to think it's high. So you may as well have your high fees, right? So coming up, why are your fees so high? How long will this crown last? I love that one. How long can I wait until this is absolutely necessary? Do you take my insurance, but you're not in network? Can't you just bill me? And one of the best, is this covered by insurance? When it's not. Oh, thanks so much, everybody. Wow, we've got someone from Kingston, Jamaica. Very, very cool. Newark, Delaware. I saw home of the University of Delaware. Wow. Thanks so much. Michigan, San Diego. Beautiful. Okay, so those are some questions we're going to cover in just a few minutes, but I'm going to take a little break here. And doctor and team member, I've got some difficult questions for you. I'm telling you how to answer the difficult questions. Now I've got some difficult questions for you. What percentage of your active patients have an actual scheduled appointment? Patients who are in your practice, who have been in within the last 18 months, say, what percentage have an actual appointment scheduled? How's your front door versus your back door? That means everybody knows how many new patients they have every month, or most people do. But a really scary, sometimes dangerous statistic is how many patients are leaving your practice every month. It doesn't mean they're calling and saying, I want you to transfer my x-rays. Nobody does that anymore, except maybe in Rochester, New York. But patients just kind of slip through the cracks. They go into that abyss. And then you realize, wow, they haven't been in for a long time because they're sneaking out the back door when you're not looking. So how's your front door versus your back door? What percentage of your patients are in a perio program? What percentage of adults in the US have some form of periodontal disease? I've seen statistics anywhere from 30% to 70%. So what percentage of your patients are in your perio program? How's your treatment plan acceptance? I'm convinced that nobody knows the answer to this question. What percentage of treatment plans are being accepted, or recommended treatment are being accepted? How about your doctor and your hygienist production per visit? Every time a patient sits in that chair or their butt's in a seat, what is the actual production by the doctors and the hygienists in your practice? And here's maybe the most important question. How can you improve your practice if you don't know this data? It's so many dentists, geez, and I'm one of you, and I used to do it this way too. We just throw spaghetti against the wall, hoping it would improve our practice. But unless you know the real numbers, the real data, you don't actually know if you're improving your practice or not. Sure, maybe more money's coming in one month, and maybe less one month, and maybe your new patients vary. You're taking those as signs. But unless you really, really know the data, you don't know in what direction your practice is heading. So this is really, really dangerous. We do a data analysis, we call it a snapshot, and we do it for practices all over the US. And we get you these really cool graphics like this. This is a ReCare chart from one practice. It's the pie graph. And of all their patients who are patients of record right now, that certain percentage, I'm not pointing, the blue, they've been in within the last 6 months. That's great. The green, well, they've been in within the last 9 months, and then the purple, and then you go to the black and the orange. That's really dangerous. These are patients of record in your practice. You might want to consider them active patients. They haven't been in over a year. Many of them, it looks like the largest part of the pie there, they haven't been in 18 to 26 months. These patients are on their way out the back door, let's face it. And in this particular practice, not knowing this data and acting on it, they were losing about $150,000 per year that they should have easy peasy. It's so much easier to treat patients who are in your practice already and get them up from the cracks, up from the abyss, than fighting for new patients all over the place. So that's a great data point. If you're going to try to improve that, you need to know the data. Here's my favorite chart. This is the back door versus front door. This is another practice that we work with. The blue, those are new patients. That's patients coming in the front door every month. The red, that's the back door. That's patients leaving every month. And again, they don't make announcements. They're not walking around with a bullhorn saying, I'm leaving, attention Kmart shoppers, I'm leaving. No, they quietly slip through that back door and we forget about them, never to be heard from again. And this is, I didn't pull this chart because it was a bad chart. I pulled it because it was very typical. This practice and most practices, every month, the red line is a little bit longer than the blue line. More patients are leaving than are coming in. It's a negative patient flow. Very, very dangerous. So when we do a snapshot for our practices, we do all this data, performance board, many, many different charts and graphs. I didn't want to spend too much time on it tonight, but we'd love to do it for your practice. It's called a snapshot. And if you just go to mato.com/snapshot, we'll be glad to do it for you. It's no charge, and we'll get on the phone and discuss it with you. Just go to mato.com/snapshot. Or if you want to be modern and text it, you can just text the word snapshot to 443-312-2014. Maybe somebody from Team Mato can put that in the comments, because I know we got to get moving. I want to get to some other questions and some other slides. But anyway, we'd love to do a snapshot for you. Just go to mato.com/snapshot to sign up. It's no charge. We'll actually get on the phone with you and discuss the results. You'll learn a ton about your practice, I promise. Or if you want to be cool and modern, text the word snapshot to that number, 443-312-2014. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's get back to the dirty dozen. Why are your fees so high? Why is it so darn expensive? Again, take steps to prevent this question. If the patient has already had an amazing experience, they might expect your fees to be a little bit higher than the practice down the street. So I'm just going to run through this really quickly. Again, I do an entire hour-plus webinar on how to make an amazing experience for your patients. But just real quickly, let's talk about the first time they come in. We're going to preempt this by giving our patients an amazing first visit experience, doing things like make the first appointment within 48 hours of their initial contact. When they call or do a chat on your website or email you, whatever it is, you've got to get them in within the first 48 hours. That's when they're most eager to come in. They're most anxious. They're not going to cancel. They're going to be there. They're excited. Make the first appointment right away. And if you don't have time in your schedule, we need to talk. If you can't get a new patient in within 48 hours, not a good thing. So we need to talk. But that's part of the amazing first visit. Doctor calls the night before. Now, I know in a really high volume, maybe a super insurance-driven practice, if you're getting 10 new patients a day, well, maybe you're not going to be able to do this, but I think that's the rare exception. This is an amazing touch. The doctor calls the night before. The call is 1 minute. Marge, This is Dr. Matto. I see you're coming in for the first time tomorrow. I just want to let you know we're really excited to meet you. Welcome to the practice. Are there any concerns or issues you're having that you'd like to discuss with me right now before you come in? No? Fantastic. Looking forward to seeing you. Boom. Kind of thing that other practices just aren't doing. Greet the patient like you're excited to see them. Oh, geez. How many times am I being the fly on the wall in a practice's reception room and a new patient comes in and there's that ugly glass sliding door and then, here, fill this out. What's your name? Name. I mean, geez, you know who that person is. You've got a new patient at 11 a.m. Someone comes in who you've never seen before. Act like you're excited to see them. You can even, I know everything's a little bit different with COVID, but you can stand up, run around to the reception room, give them the elbow bump. You must be Jim. I'm Marge. Thanks so much for coming in. You're going to love it here. I'm going to tell your hygienist, Jane, and Dr. Matto that you're here. Thanks so much. Can I get you some coffee or water, whatever? We're going to take you back, whatever. Act like you're excited to see them. And you should be excited to see them. These are the people that are keeping our lights on. Please run on time. This is another topic that I can spend 15 minutes on, not within the realm of this seminar, but please run on time. Take them back on time or even early if you can. Then don't talk to the patient in that position where you're like ready to give them treatment, where you're kind of 90 degrees from them, where neither you can see each other. Swing your chair around so you're looking at the patient 180 degrees, eye to eye, and have a little bit of small talk. So Jim, tell me, how long have you lived in the community? I see that you're a police officer. That's fantastic. How did you get into that kind of work? Whatever it is, have a little small talk before you start the dental talk while facing the patient eye to eye. And then when you're ready to talk dentistry, instead of saying, okay, open wide, poke, 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 what can we help you with today? Do that while you're still facing the patient at 180 degrees. What can we help you with today? These are the kinds of things. They're small, they're easy, they don't cost a dime, but nobody else is doing this kind of stuff. And we talked about the talk over technique during the exam. Make sure you're doing that. Here's a huge wasted opportunity. I had a friend of mine call me a few months ago. They said, hey, I went to a new dental office and the hygienist, I don't know what she was doing. She was like rubbing my neck and pushing on my neck, and then she yanked on my tongue. Well, she was doing an oral cancer screening, which is fantastic. But if you're going to do that, let's make sure the patient knows what you're doing. So while you're doing it, say, okay, right now, we're doing an oral cancer screening. I'm checking your glands for swelling now. I'm going to look at your tongue for any unusual lesions or anything weird like that. Oh, wow. The great news is I don't see anything. That's fantastic. So let the patient know of this excellent service you're providing. Okay, now let's get back to the question. Again, we're preempting it. I love preempting by doing all these fantastic things they've never seen before. But if they still ask you, this is a tough one. You don't want to lecture them, but let's let them know they're in a great practice. Something like in our practice, we're very proud to provide the best dental care that we possibly can. That means we use the finest materials, the most modern equipment, the best infection control techniques. Everybody wants to know about that. And we constantly take continuing education courses to stay up to date. This is all part of giving you the best treatment possible. Remember, investing this amount now will save a much larger expense down the road. We've got some fantastic payment options to make this treatment affordable to you. I'm going to have you talk to Lois, and she'll make sure you know about all the great options we have available. Now, in the extreme example, maybe if you don't like the patient, no, we love all of our patients, right? But maybe if you want to be like kind of a wise guy, you can say, hey, if you like, I can gladly give you the names of several dentists in the community who have significantly lower fees. Now, that's kind of tongue in cheek. I've said that maybe 3 times in my career, but sometimes you just want to say it. You got to get it out of your system. But we talked about why our fees are so high. Now, let's do the right thing and offer them the best finance options possible. You know, I love Care Credit. I mean, where else can you go in this world and get 12 months or 18 months interest-free for several $1,000s or for $10,000 or $20,000? So please utilize Care Credit as much as you possibly can. Now, Care Credit has this really cool little form. I know it's probably small on your screen, but this simplifies everything. It lists the treatment needed, the amount. It takes the patient's insurance coverage into the equation. And then it just simply lists the different options they have: cash, check, charge card. Then, of course, at the bottom, whoop, as you can see, I'm running away here. I'm still trying to figure out this. Yeah, at the very bottom, it shows them if they pay it out over 24 months or 18 months or 12 months, what the monthly payment will be. So again, this is a great technique. Patients love to see things in writing, and we tend to overcomplicate things. Use this form. Talk to your care credit rep about it. It's a fantastic form. And just simply look the patient in the eye and say, as you can see, we've got a great option for you. Your $2,400 worth of treatment we could just do for 12 months, no interest. That would be just $200 a month. Would you like to utilize that option? Just make it that simple. Don't get complicated. Don't tell them, all these crazy things that they don't need to hear. Just make it very simple and point to that option. Here's a great option for you. We can do 12 months interest-free. That'll just be $200 a month. So talk to your care credit rep. This form is, sometimes I call it the magic form, because it just puts everything in black and white right in front of the patient and keeps it simple. I think that's one of my themes throughout the entire night. Keep it simple. Now, patient financing. According to Care Credit, and they know what they're talking about 10% of your patients should be applying for financing. And if that's not the case, you're losing treatment because you're not offering financing enough. So they've got something called Quick Screen, and they can help. This is amazing. You've got to use Quick Screen in your practice. It helps you identify which patients will get approved before they even come in. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if they look on their Facebook feed. I don't know what they're doing, but they know what they're doing. They're the financial professionals. They can tell you before the patients even come in which ones are most likely to get approved. So definitely use Quick Screen by Care Credit. It is absolutely fabulous. If you want to get started on that right away very easily, just text the word Quick Screen to that number, 714-492-1120. And again, maybe one of our great Team Matto members can put that in the chat box. Definitely do it, because again, some patients, their credit is just so bad, you might be wasting your time with them. Now, when you're in your morning huddle, you can say, we did a Quick Screen on this patient. Her name is whatever. I'm trying to think of one of her name is Marion Schlankner, and we did a Quick Screen on her, and we've identified her as a patient that is most likely to qualify for Care Credit. So let's remember that when we're talking about financing with her. So again, please take advantage of this. Just text that word Quick Screen. There's the phone number, 714-492-1120. Okay. How long will this crown last? Don't you love that? How long will this crown last? Well, that's really impossible to predict. And there's so many factors that influence how long any type of dental treatment will last. Everybody has a different way that they bite and chew, and even the bacteria in everybody's mouth is different. Now we're going to I hate to even bring up the insurance companies, because we don't want to have our patients be insurance driven. But this is one time I love to bring them up, because everybody knows the insurance companies are cheap. Everybody knows the insurance companies are not looking out for their best interest. So I like to use them as an example. If it's any indication, the insurance companies generally pay for a crown every 5 years, but we expect our crowns to last much longer than that, especially if you take good care of your teeth and gums. Now, this next part is optional, but I just want to tell you, I use this in my practice so effectively. It did two great things. It got patients to come in for their regular visits like clockwork, and it got them to say yes to their treatment. I would just say something like, here's what I'll tell you. If you take good care of your teeth and come in every 4 months, whatever their sequence was, every 6 months for your regular cleanings and examinations, if anything ever happens to that crown, I'll replace it at no charge. Now that's powerful. You're telling them basically, if you come in on time for your cleanings, this crown will last forever. Now, that is a powerful thing to do, to get your patients to come in, to stay in your office, to refer their friends and family, and to say yes to their treatment. So I love that line. It's optional. I found it to be incredibly useful and very powerful. Okay, let's keep rocking it. Question number 9. How long do I love this one. How long do I have to wait until this procedure is absolutely necessary? Now, I know some practices give a wise guy answer. They say something like, well, let's make the appointment for the day before your tooth fractures. And the patient either says, oh, okay, I get it. Or they say, okay, what day is that going to be? Because they don't get it. So I would avoid, I love cracking jokes. I could be a real wise guy, prankster, all that stuff. But there's a time and place for it. Or is there a place and time? There's a place and time for it. And when a patient asks a serious question, I don't think that's the place and time for it. So how long do I have until this treatment is absolutely necessary? Well, if I had a crystal ball, I could tell you exactly how long you could wait. But the fact is, it's just impossible to predict. What I can tell you is that the decay in this tooth is active and growing every single day. Now, remember, we're setting up a scenario that's very ugly to the patient, but it's true. The decay in this tooth is active and growing every single day. That's why I recommend to keep your treatment as simple and as inexpensive as we can. And who doesn't want that? Simple and inexpensive. That's why I recommend that to keep your treatment as simple and as inexpensive as we can, and to avoid an emergency, you get this taken care of as soon as possible. You might want to call this the bad stuff can happen technique. When do I have to make this appointment? How long can I wait? Well, you can wait however long you want, but if you do, bad stuff's gonna happen. So I'll just review that one again really quickly. If I had a crystal ball, I could tell you exactly how long you could wait, but the fact is, it's impossible to predict. What I can tell you is the decay in this tooth is active and growing every single day. That's why I recommend that to keep your treatment as simple and as inexpensive as we can, and to avoid an emergency, we get this taken care of as soon as possible. ASAP, stat. Do you take my insurance, but you're not in their network? I want to introduce you to a term that I love, because if you're not in network, you still can see that patient and you still can help them file their insurance and they'll get reimbursed. So a lot of times the patients are asking, yeah, can I pay, can I get away with these low network fees? But sometimes they're just saying, this is my insurance. Can you see me as a patient? So let's make sure that we answer this patient's question honestly. I know there are practice management consultants out there that are pretty much telling you to lie to patients. And I can't stand that. You should always be honest with the patient, but you can be honest with a patient and tell them the truth and still encourage them to come to your practice. Now, this is a tough one. And granted, most people who, if you're out of network, most patients in these low paying networks are not going to come to you, but some will. It happens every single day. So why not do our best? And here's the term I want to talk to you about. It's called, I'll make quote signs. It's called an unrestricted provider. You're an unrestricted provider. That means that you're not in network, but there's no restriction to who you can see. So you can still see this patient. So here's how it goes. Do you take my insurance? I've got this insurance. It's called the world's crappiest PPO on the face of the earth that no self-respecting dentist would take. Well, so here's your answer. Because we know our patients don't want to be forced to choose a dentist from a discount provider list. And again, I've said so many times, don't slam other dentists, but I don't mind saying a term like discount provider list, because that's what it is. So let's tell the patient that if a dentist takes it, they're getting it, they're not getting paid well. So because we know our patients don't want to be forced to choose a dentist from a discount provider list, we are unrestricted providers with dental insurance. That means even though we're not in your network, we can still see you as a patient and provide you the best quality dentistry possible. Now, we'll inform you of our fees for any necessary procedures, and we'll help you estimate, and we'll help you file your claim with your insurance company, and anything that they'll reimburse, that's yours to keep. That way, you won't have to choose a dentist from a list, and you still may get some help from your insurance company. Now, we've got some great, easy, flexible payment options that we'll be glad to tell you about. If you'd like to stop in, we'd be glad to review your plan with you. Is tomorrow at 2 p.m. a good time? Notice we've driven this patient towards an appointment time by saying, we're not a network, we're an unrestricted provider. You can still come here. You'll get incredibly great care. You'll have to pay our fees, and then we'll help you get reimbursed whatever your insurance will reimburse you. A little bit of a complex answer. I would highly recommend discussing this question at your office calibration meeting. But let's be positive and think it doesn't work all the time. Maybe it doesn't work most of the time, but we can still get some great cash paying patients if we do the explanation like this, very simply. Okay. Next, please stay in touch with us. Here are a couple ways to do so. Our podcast is called the Dental Practice Fixers. Check it out. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, anywhere you can. On YouTube, you actually get to watch the video. So look for the Dental Practice Fixers podcast, or you can go to madow.com/dental podcast. Our Facebook group is called The Dental Place. Go to Facebook, join The Dental Place. It's a light-hearted group. We discuss dental questions, but also we have some rules. No back talk, no meanness, no telling people they're idiots like in all of the other dental Facebook groups. So again, check out The Dental Place. Our website is just madow.com, madow.com. If you want to send us an email, try info@madow.com, info@madow.com. I see a comment that said you'll need to go through that again, Matt. We don't really have time for me to repeat questions. I know I'm acting kind of fast, but we will post a video of this webinar on our YouTube channel. So you can watch it again and fast forward and play the parts that you want to see a couple times over. So please, please, please take advantage of that. If you want to send me a direct email, my email address is rich, RICH at Matto.com. Okay, can't you just bill me? Can't you just bill me? It's like a refrain. Can't you just bill me? So again, we need to preempt this by letting patients know that in our practice, payment is due in full on or before the day treatment starts. We've got some great financial options. Let's review this with you, blah, 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 blah. If you need to go into a little more of an explanation, you can say we've eliminated billing in order to keep our fees as reasonable as possible. The cost of billing is very high, and we don't want our fees to reflect that. So it's really important that you turn what the patient's perceiving as a negative. This office doesn't bill. Nobody really does anymore except old school practice. You're turning it into a positive. The cost of billing is very high, and we don't want our fees to reflect that. Let's review the financial options we offer to see which is best for you. So again, I always like to end these in a way that you're not giving the patient like a million choices, like, well, we can't bill you, and if you don't like that, can't come here. So, let's review the financial options we offer to see which is best for you. Now, since we talked about a billing policy, and that is, in my opinion, treatment, there's nowhere you can't go to the grocery store and get 5 bags of groceries and just walk out and say, send me a bill. There's nowhere else in the world you can get goods or services without paying, unless you've got some kind of formal arrangement. So we're not doing that in our office either. We don't bill. And please, please, please don't do in-house payment plans. It's just asking them to get screwed. If a patient wants to do a payment plan, have them do Care Credit. And if Care Credit doesn't approve them, this is the best professional finance/banking company in the world for healthcare. So if Care Credit doesn't approve them, what they're saying is, whatever you do, don't let this patient pay you by the month because they will screw you over. So please don't do that. Can you make exceptions? Yeah, if old Gertrude's 100 years old and she's been coming to your practice for 75 years and she's always been paying by the month and she's never missed a payment, sure, we'll let old Gertrude slip. But no one else, no new patients, no one else, no, we don't bill. And that's how you explain it to your patients. Okay, while we're almost finished, the Dirty Dozen. Isn't this exciting? One more time, we'd love to do a free practice snapshot for you. It's for practice owners only. We love associates, but this is for practice owners only. Just go to Matto.com/snapshot. We'll do this incredible data analysis. We even get on the phone or Zoom and chat with you about it. You will learn so much. There's no obligation, no pressure. The only thing I guarantee is that you will learn so much about your practice that you didn't know. So we'd love to do a snapshot for you. If you're a practice owner, go to Matto.com/snapshot. Or maybe if you want to be with the cool kids, you can text snapshot to 443-312-2014. Either way, we'd love, love, love to do that for you. And don't forget, Care Credit offers this really cool tool called Quick Screen, where they will tell you ahead of time who is most likely to be approved and who is most likely not to. So text the word Quick Screen to that number, 714-492-1120. We've got one more question left. Is this covered by insurance? A lot of patients, it's not their fault. Patients are so used to medical insurance where it pays for just about everything after you do your deductible or whatever. And dental insurance just isn't like that. So again, I love metaphors, analogies, similes, whatever they are. Oh, somebody asked a question too. I think I'm going to answer that. Can the data be kept private during the snapshot? That's a great, great question. And absolutely everything is private. It's HIPAA compliant, and we would never, ever, ever share your data with anyone else. That is just unethical. But I know people do all kinds of crazy things out there. So I'm really, really glad you asked that. It's a great question. And we would never, ever, ever share your data with anyone else. It's just completely confidential. So, okay. Dental insurance is kind of like a coupon. So that's a great analogy to use with our patients. Well, the great news is your insurance is going to cover a portion of this. Remember, the purpose of dental insurance is to help offset the cost of your treatment, not pay for it entirely. It's kind of like clipping or having a coupon. Carol can take a look at your coverage and give you an estimate of how much help your insurance will provide. So notice those terms, how much help your insurance will provide. It's kind of like a coupon. I'll just repeat that for you so you know what I'm saying, because I really love this phrase. The great news is, always start with the positive, right? The great news is your insurance is going to cover a portion of this. Remember, the purpose of dental insurance is to help offset the cost of your treatment, not pay for it entirely. It's kind of like having a really good coupon. Carol can take a look at your coverage, and give you an estimate of how much help your insurance will provide. Now, let's say it's cosmetic treatment and insurance won't cover anything. Again, let's start with a positive. First of all, I'm so glad that you're interested in veneers. They're going to look fantastic and you will be smiling everywhere. Insurance doesn't get involved with cosmetic dental treatment, but we do have some fantastic payment options that Carol will be glad to review with you. I'll just do that one more time. And that is, they need cosmetic treatment. There's zero insurance coverage. First of all, I'm so glad you're interested in veneers. They're going to look fantastic and you will be smiling everywhere. When you start with something so positive, how can anybody say no, right? And say, insurance doesn't get involved with cosmetic dental treatment, but we do have some fantastic payment options that Carol will be glad to review with you. And I cannot believe it, but that is the Dirty Dozen. 12 difficult questions the patients ask. So one more time, please stay in touch with us. Check out our podcast, The Dental Practice Fixers. Our Facebook group is called The Dental Place. We would love you to join. Matter.com, www.matter.com is our website. If you want to send an email, you can send it to info@matter.com. You want to email me directly. My direct email address is rich@matter.com.